All right. Well, good morning, afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are, and whatever time zone you're in and you're watching this. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Ben Halpert. I'm the founder of Savvy Cyber Kids. And today I'm going to talk to you about what you can do as a parent to make sure that your kids are super successful in life with all the technology that they'll be using every single day. So the presentation is called Digital Native or Digital Naive. And the reason why I titled the presentation that is because while everyone born today is technically a digital native, what they also are, and what people aren't really talking about so much, is that they're actually digital naives. Because just because they're born into this world of wonderful technology doesn't mean they know how to reason around it, how to make decisions about it, and how to be successful with the technology. And that's where you come in as parents. And so you will learn a lot from today's session. And a little bit of what I say may scare you a little bit. It's not meant to scare you. It's actually meant to educate you, tell you what's really happening with the technology that your kids are using and the tech that you use every day as well, and educate and move you to action. And so we're going to give you tools and tips that you can use in your own family right after you finish this session. So let's jump into the materials. This is a map. And if I were in a room with you right now, I would ask you to tell me what this is a map of. And most people actually get the answer wrong when I ask them, what's this a map of? But I'm going to tell you. So this is a map from the National Sex Offender Registry. And every dot on this map is a sex offender. Now, in order to show up on this map, you have to have caused harm in a sexual nature to an adult or a child. So you've had to have to rape or molest or sexually batter a child or an adult. And the colors on this map denote the type of crime. The red dots are crimes against kids, minors, and the other colors denote different crimes against adults. Now, when you get on this map, well, let's talk about how you get on this map. So you got on this map because you did something as a criminal that was not acceptable to society. You were caught in that act. You were then charged by the police. You were sent to trial. You were convicted of your crime. You served time in prison. And for the rest of your life, once released from prison, you are on the National Sex Offender Registry. And every time you move, you have to go to your local police precinct, give them your new current address, and get fingerprinted to prove it's who you are and that's where you live. And the reason why is so that you as a convicted felon could know that people around you should know about you because they need to be careful. And that's what the law does to help protect us citizens from individuals that have committed crimes against other adults and children. So if you've never looked at one of these maps before, it's kind of eye-opening. You can do a search for yourself. You can go to familywatchdog.us and you can put any address in you want, or you could just do a city. Now, these dots are everywhere. And it's important for you to understand so that you can communicate to your kids properly that these dots are the people that reach out to them in games and in apps when they are on their technology. These are the people that your kids may already be gaming with, that they call their online friends, or they call their friends, or they connect with on social media, who they share things with, who they have direct messaging with. These predators will do anything to get their next target. Now, these predators actually think there's nothing wrong with targeting children. There is nothing wrong with having sex with a child. That is what they think. We know that that is not correct, and we need to protect our kids from these harmful individuals. So these people are always looking for their next victim because they really can't get jobs. You wouldn't want to work with these people sitting in the cube next to you or the office next to you. And so these folks are online pretty much all the time looking for their next victim, and they go after more than one person at a time. And these sexual predators also talk with one another, and they share tips on how to groom children as fast as possible or how to get kids to do something that they wouldn't normally do. And so we're going to talk about that as we go through the presentation today on how you can prepare your kids to be successful when they're using this technology. Now, each one of those dots on a map has a type. So there are some sexual predators that go after adults. And if that's the case for adults, they're going to go after their next victim on most likely the online dating sites or the dating apps. For those red dots on the map, and a lot of cities have way more red dots than what I just showed you. And also, just because a dot doesn't live near you doesn't mean your child is not in harm's way unless you do something about it. Because these people get in their cars, they get on planes, they get on trains, they do anything they can to meet up with their next victim. So this is one example, because these dots on a map, they have a type. And so you have a type, the type of person that you're attracted to from a relationship perspective. And these people, they have a type too, but they have a type when it comes to kids. And so some of them their type is a 9-year-old boy or an 8-year-old boy or an 11-year-old girl or a 14-year-old girl. So they have a type and they know where to find their type. So here's an example of a sexual predator going after his type, a young child, in Roblox. So it doesn't matter if you think, oh, Roblox is just a game for kids. Yeah, it's a game for kids, and the predators know that. So the predators go there to find their next victim. And what they do is they start communicating, and we'll talk about this in a little bit too. They start communicating with kids in the games and in the apps, try to move them off platform to something else, to a different type of technology that's less monitored, and try to get them to do things you would never want your kids to do. Here's another example. Predators use Fortnite. If their target is a boy, say, I don't know, 11, 12, 13, 14, they know that boys like to play Fortnite. Now, girls like to play Fortnite too, so if you have females there, you need to be careful of that too. And you need to be careful about any game that kids are playing in. And here's an example of a 29-year-old man who set up fake profiles in Snapchat posing as a 16 or 17-year-old boy, and he sexted with 10 to 12-year-old girls. 10 to 12-year-old girls. Now, from a video game perspective, this is kind of different for our generation now raising kids. And that's because when we were younger and when we played video games, they were really one person, that was you playing the video game. If you wanted to play with other people, they were in the same room with you and you had multiplayer games and you were playing. But now that we have internet connectivity and everything is connected, including things like refrigerators and other appliances, you have to be careful and you have to understand and educate your kids that they will be playing with strangers in the games they will play. And you need to teach your kids how to respond to them when they say, send me a picture without your shirt on. Send me a picture of your beautiful face. Send me a picture of you doing so-and-so. So this is just one example where the police are getting involved now in cases where these predators are going after young kids in games, and they're actually convincing them to do things that you can't even imagine. And once they find out that they have a sibling, what they'll do is they'll take the 6-year-old girl, the 7-year-old, 8-year-old, and they'll say, oh my goodness, you have a sibling? Let's see what they look like. Send me a picture of them. And they'll start instructing them to do sexual things and potentially sexually batter or molest their own brothers or sisters because a predator told them so. And what the predators do is they guilt the kids. And if they say, if they got your child to send a picture without their shirt on, an example, they'll say, well, you already sent me a picture without your shirt on, and tell your parents, and you're going to get in really big trouble. And so when you say that to a kid, they get scared and they do whatever else the predator says next. So that's why it's so important to be involved in your kids' lives from a daily perspective when they're playing with technology. So here's some of the kind of questions that get asked by the predators to kids when they're playing a game. And this is just an example of some chat. So, hey, how are you? What's your name? Where do you live? By the way, when kids play with other kids, they don't ask those first few questions. Kids are having fun. They don't say, hey, where do you live? Or, hey, what's your name? Because they know what the gamer tag name is. So the reason why predators ask for your child's name is because you create a comfort level. When you call someone by their name, they feel more comfortable being around you. So instead of whatever the gamer tag is that they named, and hopefully your child's gamer tags are not their real names, They get the child to tell them their real name, and this way it kind of lowers the barrier and makes them feel more comfortable with the predator going after them. So in December, I was fortunate enough to be interviewed for a Times cover story. And it was basically a really deep dive into what's happening with child predators and kids in video games. And one of the things I'm proud of that came out of this is that we now have a little bit more awareness for parents of what they should do and what they should talk to their kids about when it comes to video games today. And so one of the things that I said in this article is that it's really important that you tell your 5-year-old, your 6-year-old child that they need to keep their clothes on when they use technology. It sounds crazy to us, but you have to tell your kids, because if you don't tell your kids that we don't take off our clothes when we use technology, a predator is going to ask them, is going to groom them, and all of a sudden they're going to start taking their clothes off because they don't know any better. So start telling your young children that. Because everything's connected, like I mentioned before, kids are now being exposed to pornography at younger and younger ages. A few years ago, the studies came out and said children were exposed to pornography around 10, 11 years old. Now, kids around 7 years old are being exposed to pornography. And why is that? If you've ever seen a YouTube video, you know what happens next. You get suggested videos on the side, and you get links that pop up. Or if you're in a game or if you're in an app, someone can send you a link and all of a sudden it's a picture of something else. And kids are being exposed to pornography because this is one of the things that the sexual predators do to try to lower the threshold and to get kids comfortable with pornography themselves. They'll say, oh, this is what I want you to do. Watch this video. And they'll say, now I want you to do that on camera for me. So it's really important to tell your kids to keep their clothes on. Now, being on technology has other effects as well on our kids. There have been studies that say social media and too much technology use causes harm, causes depression, causes anxiety. There are two sides to the argument, and there's some folks that are in the middle. Some people say it does cause, some people say it doesn't cause depression. Here's what I will tell you. If you talk to an ER doctor, if you talk to an ER nurse, they will tell you that they are astonished by the amount of kids that show up in their emergency rooms because they attempted committing suicide. If you have a child that, now this is regardless of technology in use, if you have a child that has some signs of depression, potentially some type of anxiety, whatever it may be, you have to pay special attention to that child and their use of technology, because whatever they have gets amplified once they're on social media. And if your child is having negative thoughts, unfortunately, there are other types of predators out there that would encourage your children to actually kill themselves. We've seen some of these stories in the media, but it's really important that you tell your kids that they need to be careful of what they see and understand what they're looking at and come to ask you. So as an example, if someone's having some suicidal thoughts, someone may encourage them, and someone may say, oh, did you ever think, there's multiple ways to do this. You can, leave it messy when you kill yourself, or you can do it cleanly. You can do it so it's painful for yourself. You can do it so it's pain-free. They'll say anything your child wants to hear. So you need to make sure if your child is changing in the way they behave around you. And if you notice things when they're not on technology as well, you need to get professional help and intervention. And this came out at the end of last year, and the leading cause of death among kids between 10 and 14 is now suicide. And so when we didn't have technology, seeing other people kill themselves wasn't something that we saw on a regular basis. But now, just by going online, your kids get exposed to that kind of thing, and they hear about stories of other people killing themselves. So it is important to talk to your kids and tell them how much you love them and care about them, and that you're available so that they can come to you, and if they have any questions, and you can help them. Now, cyberbullying is another problem that we're dealing with. And this statistic shows that roughly 60% of children have been a target of some type of cyberbullying. I would say this is higher. And that's based on the discussions that I have with students when I go to schools with them. We'll talk about that on the next slide as well. But know that mean, hateful and harmful comments are being sent to your children. It might not be every day, it might not be on every post, but if it's not directed to them, they will see it being directed towards another of their friends or someone else online. So you need to talk to your kids about what you expect and how you expect them to communicate with others when they're on technology, and that tell your kids that they should come to you if they're ever the target of a cyberbully so that you can help them get through it. So I'm fortunate to have the opportunity to speak with thousands of students every single year. And this is what they tell me. So half of the kids take their technology to bed with them at night. This is bad. When I tell the kids, well, I don't tell the kids, I ask them this question first. How many of you take your devices to bed with you at night? The hand shoot up. It doesn't matter whether it is a public school, a private school, a large school, a small school, poor school, more well-off schools. It doesn't matter the environment. Kids are kids and technology is a technology, and it has the same impact. So half of them across all these schools take their technology to bed with them at night. And then I ask them a follow-on. I don't tell them that's good or bad. I ask them a follow-on and I say, raise your hand and tell me why you think that's not a good idea to take your technology to bed with you at night. And guess what? Hands shoot up. And one at a time, they tell me every single reason why it's not a good idea to take their technology to bed with them at night. And then I ask them a follow-up question. And I say, so why do you take your technology to bed with you at night? And they say, because my parents don't take it away. And you don't take it away because you don't want an argument. And we know that if our kids are on technology, they behave differently. They get a little more aggressive. I don't know if you've seen this in your kids or not, but I'm pretty sure you have. So we need to set ground rules and expectations with our kids. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Every kid has seen mean, rude, and inappropriate comments, and so have you. If you've ever seen a YouTube video, you've seen comments underneath that have been rude, inappropriate, and mean. If you've ever been on social media, you've seen someone else being rude or inappropriate, whether it was to you or to someone else. If you've been in a game or you've watched your kids play a game, you'll hear people using mean, rude, or inappropriate comments or raging in the game. Most of the kids think you, the parent, are using your technology too much. And you are. I do too. It's because technology is so addictive the way it's designed. It's designed so that we always have a device in our hand, or we always want to have a device in our hand. And this is because companies can only monetize our actions on devices when the device is in motion. So when the device is sitting down on a table or a dresser or a desk, you're not being monetized anymore. When you pick the device up, when you're scrolling, when you're tapping, when you're interacting, that every single point of data is being monetized. And so they use people that are experts in the field on how to get you to keep the technology, and your kids to keep the technology in their hands as much as possible. Your kids want to talk to you when you're not using your technology. So in my house, we have this rule that for my kids, when they want to talk to me, I tell them, please come up to me and then say my name or say dad, and then pause, because I'm typically in the middle of something, right? Whether it's work or social, whatever it is on technology. And then I finish whatever the thought is that I was in the middle of. And then I put the technology down and I look them in the eye and I give them my undivided attention. And that's what you should do with your kids too. Kids know that your technology is more important to you than talking to them by how you show them how you talk to them. Kids are very aware of that. Oh, and this is kind of interesting, but your kids want you to ask them permission before you post pictures of them. That was kind of fascinating when that one first came up a few years ago. But your kids actually think a little bit more about privacy than you do. And that's a generational thing, but it's good. If you have some family pictures, you're at the beach, you're on a vacation, you're at home, wherever it is, and you want to post pictures, involve your child in the decision-making process. You can say, I really want to post a family picture from from our activities or whatever we did last week or last night. Help me pick out a picture. And so get them involved in that activity and they'll be happy about that. I mentioned this before a little bit, but our kids will do whatever we do with the technology. So as an example, if we talk to our kids while using technology, when we want to go to our kids and talk to them, they're going to still use their technology when they answer us. And so one of the biggest places this is really obvious and you can see it is when you go to restaurants. So maybe you are this family, but I like to take pictures of families when everyone's on their technology and they're not actually communicating with each other. So be careful if you're ever in a restaurant and you're all on your technology. I might be there somewhere taking your picture. Your kids learn to communicate with other human beings by watching your facial expressions. They do not learn to communicate by listening to your voice. So if you want your kids to grow up to be good communicators, and we all do, why not? Make mealtime device-free time. This is hard, especially for families where this has been happening in the past and you are bringing your technology to the meals. Make a new rule. By the way, this only works if both you and your spouse agree that we're going to do this. So my wife and I, we did this a few years ago, and or more than a few now. But we said, let's agree to make mealtime technology free time so we can talk to our kids. And by the way, we bring things like decks of cards or other types of little games that we can all do and play while we're out at a restaurant. So make an agreement with your significant other that we're going to go device free. Then tell your kids, all right, kids, we're all going device free at mealtime. So if you ever see mom or I with our technology and it comes out at the table, feel free to call us out on it. And the kids have a great time doing that because, we've been doing this for so long, it's become a habit. So we need to unlearn the habit. And after about 2 weeks, everyone will pretty much be on the same page. But it's funny to watch the kids yell at you because everyone makes mistakes. My wife and I made mistakes when we first did this as well. And the kids had a great time calling us out on it. Now, if you do have to take a work call or you have to answer a really important message and it can't wait till after dinner or lunch or breakfast, whatever it may be, excuse yourself from the table and go take care of it so that you're not being a distraction to everyone else that's there. All right, so I've been kind of throwing in digital parenting tips as we've been going along, but now we're going to spend a little more time on it. So from a screen time perspective, the American Academy of Pediatrics has put out some guidelines, and this is the guidelines here on the slide. Very interesting. Most people don't know this at all, but the doctors recommend no screen time for kids 18 months or younger, except if they are using things like Google Hangouts or FaceTime to communicate with a relative that might not live nearby. Just watching facial expressions, just communicating that way. That's it. So none of what we see when we're out and about in stores or out in restaurants where people plop a tablet or a phone right in front of their little one just to keep them quiet. So that's a no-no. 18 to 24 months, use only high quality media, expose your child only to high quality media, and they have to use the technology with you. How difficult is that? It's pretty hard. 2 to 5-year-old children, up to 1 hour a day of the same high quality materials that they're viewing or participating with, like in a game, for example, and it must be with you as well. And then over 6 years, it's kind of do your best. What you need to look out for with your kids is you need to see, and this is what happens when we talk about technology addiction, you need to see if they're replacing things in their lives with technology. So if your child is on a sports team, as an example, and they would rather be on their technology than go to practice, or they practice, or they game or something through a practice like soccer or basketball or football or whatever it may be, or they really want to, they'd rather do that than play on the team. That's when you know there's something potentially that you may have to deal with. When you replace things like mealtime or brushing teeth or taking a shower, self-care, with using technology, that's also when we talk about technology addiction. So your job is to make sure your child never gets there and to create healthy screen time habits for your children. Okay, so for kids 3 to 7 years old, I actually wrote and published these children's picture books. This is the Savvy Cyber Kids at Home series. You can see some of them back there as well. And I wrote these because of my experience in the cybersecurity industry and knowing that we need to do way more to protect our kids. And I was actually in a PhD program and I was doing some research on how to get someone, how do you get a human being to learn something that they will never forget? Well, the answer is you teach it to them when they're young. So the younger you can teach someone something, the longer they will remember it for. And if you teach them something before they're 5, essentially it becomes ingrained, which is why we do things like bring firemen and firewomen and police officers to schools to teach kids about dialing 911 when there's an emergency. You don't think right now, geez, there's an emergency. What was the number I need to dial? No, it's 911. That's because it was taught to you before you were 5. So same thing goes with anything we want to teach our children. So I wrote these children's picture books. They rhyme. I'm a big fan of Dr. Seuss. I'm nowhere near as good, but kids seem to like the books. Basically, the kids develop these superhero identities, and those are the identities they go online with. And everyone loves superheroes. And so the kids create their own superhero identities, and we have activities that you can do with your kids that are free to download from our website that also go along with these books. The first book in the series teaches kids about what technology is, about strangers, and about privacy. The second book in the series, the kids are playing an online game and they encounter a cyberbully. So the book takes them through how to respond to a cyberbully and also how to respond to a bully at school or on the playground or somewhere else. The third book in the series, that is called Adventures Beyond the Screen, and that addresses the number one thing we hear from kids when we ask them to put down their technology, and then they stand and look at us and say, "I'm bored." Yep, my kids did it too. So this book helps kids brainstorm on things that they can do on a rainy day when they have to be inside and things they can do when it's nice outside. And so this helps kids get to think about all the different things in their life that they have the opportunity to do. Next, we produced a free guide that's available to download from our website for your parents because they take care of your kids too. And so the first half of this Grandparents Guide to Technology talks about the scams that target the older generation. The second half talks about what they should do with your kids and their technology when they come to visit and they're responsible for them. So you can download this and give it to them. And then for you, we have the Digital Parenting Guide to Technology. This is a multi-volume series. It is free to download again from our website, savvycyberkids.org. And we talk about pretty much every single topic that comes about when we talk about parenting with technology and what kids are up against and give you tips on how you can arm your kids for success. This is what our website looks like. If you're an educator, we have educator guides as well. We do also have lesson plans and activity sheets that go along with the books that I talked about before. So if you sign up, you will get free access to those materials. Now, in one of the parent guides, we talk about how to have a savvy cyber home. And here are some of the tips that we talk about. And I want you to notice the asterisks that are here. Now, use only one screen at a time. The asterisk means your kids should only be using one screen at a time while they're in elementary school. After elementary school, forget it, goes out the window. Your kids are going to be on multiple screens at a time, and that's just how they live today. Second one, technology goes to bed in a charging area, especially for sleepovers. So like I mentioned before with the kids, your kids need a good night's sleep. Most kids tell me 50% roughly tell me they take their technology to bed with them at night and it interrupts their sleep. Make sure that you take your kids' technology away and have a common charging area, maybe in a kitchen or your bedroom or somewhere else where you keep the technology. And one of the main reasons why we do this is because kids, when they get tired, they can't make a good decision. When you get tired, you can't make a good decision either. That's where the term, let me sleep on it comes from, because we know that we don't want to make a bad decision and we know we're not thinking really clearly right now. So we need to sleep on it. So your kids can't reason over that right now. So you need to help them. So if they're playing a game or they're in an app and someone says, hey, send me a picture without your shirt on, or send me a picture without your clothes on, or do this or do that. If they do that, if that stranger, if that sexual predator does that for 3 hours straight, when you think your kids are sleeping, guess what your child's eventually going to do because their brain is not functioning at its highest level. They're going to send the pictures of the videos. So let's take that temptation away from our kids. Let's make sure that they can be successful with their tech. 30-minute technology limits. Oh, by the way, the asterisk on that on that second one right there, technology goes to bed in a common charging area. That goes out the window when your high school student gets the grade that you're happy with on their ACT and SAT, and they got accepted to the university or college that you're happy with, or their plans for the future are solid. Then you take every single piece of technology with the screen that you have in your home and you put it in their room. You have to teach your kids how to live with all the technology in their lives. There is a huge percentage. We heard sometime before when we did the live session, about 65% of incoming college freshmen after the first semester flunk out and move back home. I don't want my kids moving back home after they go to college first semester, and you don't either. So we need to set up our kids to be successful by introducing the technology basically senior year into their bedroom. It is better for your child to game all night and see what that feels like, miss an exam or miss a quiz or something senior year that won't impact their future because they've already got accepted to the university that they're going to, than it is for them to game all night when they're a freshman in college and then they get failing grades and get kicked out of school. So we need to teach our kids how to moderate that and how to live with that. So let's do that when they're seniors. All right, 30-minute technology limits. This comes into play for kids that are in elementary school. That doesn't mean just 30 minutes a day. What it means is 30 minutes at a time. So your child wants to play a game, great, let them play a game for 30 minutes. Then get them off technology. Their brain needs time to reset. Get them doing something else. If it's nice, let them go outside and do some activities. If it's not, let them do some things in the home. And they can get back on tech later and do something else. The exceptions, there's always exceptions. So one exception would be watching movies with your kids. Another would be, this is one exception that we do in our family, on days of travel when we're all getting on airplanes, we basically have unlimited screen time that day, but I know, and my wife knows, that our kids are going to act differently because of what happens to brain state when we're on technology too long. So as long as you're aware and you understand the consequences, you can manage around it. And that 30-minute technology limit is only, again, for elementary school. It goes completely out the window for middle and high school. No technology at mealtime. Talked about that enough. Make sure your kids understand this concept of a stranger. Those dots on the map, those are strangers. And that is the person that they think is their friend reaching out to them in a game or an app, trying to communicate with them. So we have so many more tips that are available for you if you download the digital parenting guides from savvycyberkids.org. Now, a question I always get from parents are, what apps do I need to look out for? Not a great question for me to answer easily. And so I want to show you this, and then I'll tell you what the real answer is. This is one example of what a police department, or in this case, I believe it is a sheriff's office, put out in Florida. And these are a lot of the apps where they're seeing the pedophiles reaching out to kids and trying to get them to do things that are illegal. But some of these are things like Instagram and Twitter. So these are more like mainstream apps, right? So what do you really need to look for? So the real answer is what apps do I need to be concerned about, or what games should I be concerned about my kids playing, is you need to be concerned about every single app your kid is using, every social media platform your child is on, and every video game your child plays. Doesn't matter if it's not on this list or not, because those dots on the map know how to find their next target in whatever game or whatever app your child happens to be interested in. And by the way, as we know, tastes change all the time, right? So there's a hot new app today, there's a hot game today. Well, 6 months it's different. And so you need to be aware of the technology that your kids are using. All right, so because you need to know about the apps that your children actually use, I wrote a blog to help you out with that. And so there's a bit.ly that'll take you straight to that blog post. And it's based off of, I wrote this blog based off a question one of my children asked me. And this was the text message that they sent when they were on the bus. And you can see my response. That was my immediate response. And there's a lot more of it. So this blog post actually takes you through the steps you need to do as a parent anytime you're looking at an app or a game for your kids. All right, now, kids are difficult, right? I mean, no one ever talks about how difficult kids are when we're all so excited and, we're making family plans and we're going to have babies. But, sometimes kids need a little help and need a little direction. There is only one thing that my wife and I have figured out that actually changes behavior with our children. There is only one thing that our kids actually really care about, and that is their phone, their smartphone. You can take everything away from my kids, and yours might be the same. But as long as they have that phone, they're happy. So my wife and I decided that even if things are happening where it's not related to technology, the consequence is their smartphone. So as an example would be, you talk back to us, you say something mean to your sibling, whatever it may be, the consequence is you lose that technology. So the first time we took it away from our eldest daughter, her school went on lockdown and she didn't have a phone with her. So she came home from school and she was very upset about that. The second time that she actually lost her phone because of something, again, not related to technology, there was a tornado that was in the area and they had to go shelter in place. The third time, something else happened. I don't remember what it was, but it's detailed here in the blog. But I was trying to figure out if the universe was trying to tell me something, like I was being a terrible parent because I kept taking my child's smartphone away. So I said, you know what, kids today, they love to communicate because they're used to communicating. When we were growing up, we were not used to communicating 24/7 wherever we were. But now, because of the technology we use, kids can. And so because of that, I said, okay, let's see if we can fix this. And I went out to eBay and I actually purchased this flip phone that you see for $9.38. I then went and I added this phone to be an additional line at my carrier. And then I took my phone and my wife's phone and I created a new contact called Naughty Child with the phone number. So this way, we can be an immediate response if any one of our children says something or does something that we don't approve of. Hand me the phone, and they get the naughty phone. This changes behavior. The first time that my eldest took this phone to school, because now they have the ability to communicate still, because they can text. And yes, they figure out very quickly how to text on these old phones. Her friends were too embarrassed for her so they wouldn't let her take it out of her pocket to show anybody else in public because they didn't want her to get bullied because she had a flip phone. That changed behavior. So I talked about all the details and what I actually did with that here. So it's kind of an interesting read. So that's when I came up with the naughty phone. Naughty child, naughty phone. Because it's so important to talk to your kids about the technology that they use every day, we started posting conversation starters to have a tech talk with your kids every day. So every weekday, we publish a conversation starter that you can use, whether it's during a meal or doing carpool or anytime that you think you might want to bring up something. You can ask your child if they've seen this article or what do they think about this topic. And so we give you some of the questions to initially answer. And you can see which ones you think are appropriate for the age of your child and what you want to talk about. So we help you with that. And we post these conversation starters, like I said, every weekday on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So hopefully wherever you are as a parent, you get these in your feed so you can have that easy conversation with your kids. Now, sometimes on our work computers, we have our cameras covered, but not necessarily so on our personal computers. So I want to share a story with you. So this is a screenshot from an interview that Miss Teen USA did several years ago. And what happened to Miss Teen USA is today something that we call sextortion, and it happens all the time, unfortunately. So Miss Teen USA, high school student, she was sitting in her bedroom and she was doing her homework on her laptop. In came an email, and basically it said, I have naked pictures and videos of you, and if you don't send me more, I'm going to release all the videos that I do have and pictures I do have to the media and to everyone you go to school with. The first thing she did, which is the first thing that all of us should do whenever we get a message like that, is do not respond. Do not reply. The next thing we do is we determine if this is something that we need to take action on. And so Miss Teen USA, she got this message, she went to her parents, and you want to tell your kids to come to you if they ever get a message or a text or whatever it is, in a game or in an app or in an email or on their phone or wherever, to come to you. and then you can work through it. So with her parents, they decided to call the police. And the police actually did an investigation, and it turns out someone had hacked into her laptop and was actually remotely controlling the camera on her laptop. So they did indeed have naked pictures and videos of Miss Teen USA. They also found out in the investigation that the individual that hacked into her laptop hacked into about 100 other women and young girls' cameras on their laptops and had files for each of them on the laptop. And he was sextorting them so that they would send him more pictures and videos. And he kept them all in files. This also turns out this was a boy in her high school class. The technology that we use today is flawed. We designed it as humans. Humans are not perfect. And therefore, whatever we design is not perfect. In the cybersecurity industry, we call these things vulnerabilities. Weaknesses within a system that can be exploited or taken advantage of by someone wishing to do us harm. So what we can do in this case is we can cover our cameras. The other thing that we can do is always make sure that whatever piece of technology we're talking about is always running the latest update, the latest software version on whatever piece of technology you're using. So whenever you get a pop-up that says there's an update, would you like to do it now or later? Please take a deep breath and do it now, because companies only send out those update notifications when they fix a security vulnerability that someone can control the tech you're using and do things like take pictures or videos of you or take all the data off of your device. So please teach your kids and for yourself, anything personal and business related, make sure you're always running the latest software. And all the things that we use in our life now are connected to the internet. You need to be aware of that. If your kids have one of the Siri devices or the Alexa enabled devices or the OK Google enabled devices or whatever they are, make sure that your kids and you do not put one of those devices with a screen in your bedrooms. Because anytime you get a screen with a piece of technology now, you also get a camera. And I talked about how people can take over cameras. We do not want that happening to you and your family. So just the smart speakers, those are fine if you are okay knowing that everything you say is being recorded by the companies. If you're okay with that, then it's fine to have in your bedroom and your kids' bedroom. Some people are not okay with that. And by the way, they're recording all the time. Otherwise, how would they even hear the wake word? So I thought this was funny. We need to get our kids to have balanced lives when it comes to the technology that they use every day. And it is our job to help them become balanced in their lives. So I talked about a lot of different topics today with you. And I just want to quickly recap some top takeaways. So things you can do right now. Model the behavior you want to see from your kids. That also is the third one on the list too. That includes no technology at meals. It's difficult, but it is important for your kids and for your relationship with your kids, by the way, because you do not want a snotty kid answering you back while they're staring at your screen at a meal when you're trying to actually have a conversation. No technology in the bedroom at night, again, asterisks, until they become a senior in high school and they got the SAT, ACT score that you're happy with, and they got accepted to the university that you're happy with as well. Then give them all the tech, teach them how to live with it. Tell your kids, no matter how young they are, they need to keep their clothes on. And start and continue the tech talk with your kids every single day. Use the conversation starters that we provide on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and on Twitter so that you can have an active conversation with your kids on the technology they love and use every single day. Hope you've enjoyed our session. If you have questions related to technology use and your kids, or questions for your use as well, feel free to email me at founder@savvycyberkids.org, and I am always happy to answer them. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.